So, it's pretty obvious you clicked on this video because you, just like me, found yourself scratching your head after watching the 5th and final season of Stranger Things, likely screaming at your TV something along the lines of, what in the actual fuck was that? Plot hole after plot hole, setups with non-payoffs, cringy dialogue, shoehorned characters with nothing to do and no purpose, zero antagonist motivation, absurdly anticlimactic action sequences, and on and on and on. You've already seen it, and it's been well documented already. But this isn't a review video, nor will I highlight the many, many shortcomings of Season 5, as there are literally hundreds of people already doing that. Instead, you know what? I figured we'd try and do something fun. My name's Taylor, and I'm an amateur author of books and screenplays. It's been one of my hobbies for close to 20 years now. If you, yes, you, dear viewer, watched that final season and thought to yourself, holy shit, I can do better than that, guess what? You're probably right. And in this video, we're going to prove that fact by doing a fun little writing exercise. Over the past week or so, after my day job, I'd come home and I'd work on a full rework of Stranger Things Season 5. I gave myself some constraints, though, and a few rules that I had to abide by. Rule number 1 is that everything through Season 4 is canon, the good and the bad. So any loose threads left over after Season 4, I had to try and work those in and close those loops if possible. Rule number 2, ignore the stage play. Why? Because it's so niche and ancillary, and so few fans of the show will actually ever get to see it that it's pointless to consider it canon. That said, there are a couple story details, small story details from the stage play that I baked in, but it still works within the premise of the show without anyone having to even know that the stage play exists. And rule number 3, the final rule, I have to end up at almost the exact same epilogue as the actual end of Season 5. The one and only highlight to me of Season 5 was that epilogue. I actually loved it. I was very touched by it. I thought it was great. But as myself and many other people already said on the internet, almost anything could have preceded that. You could have had anything happen to lead up to that same exact ending. It almost feels like the Duffer Brothers wrote that ending years and years and years before they had anything even remotely conceptualized for the rest of Season 5. Now, I'm not saying I'm some brilliant writer, quite the contrary. All I'm trying to prove with this little video is that there are thousands of people out there, many without any actual writing experience, that could have easily provided the public with a better, more coherent, and ultimately more satisfying conclusion to Stranger Things than the very people who were paid millions of dollars to do so, but didn't give a shit and served us a bunch of lazy slop anyways. So, without further ado, here is my own personal treatment for Stranger Things Season 5, the one that should have been from the beginning. Okay, so the first big change in this, instead of that 18-month layover between seasons, we start just 2 weeks after the end of Season 4. Hawkins is already half empty. Most people have evacuated. The rest are packing up. Spores and ash are pouring out of the rifts in town, and it's obviously that the whole surrounding area is being terraformed. The military rolls in, quarantines the place, and Hawkins becomes ground zero for something the government can't even admit is real. Dr. Owens has sympathetic troops helping Hopper and Eleven. But the mood shifts fast when Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan and his special forces start flooding into town. Now this takes us to our main cast of characters. Everyone scrambles to find a way to try and stay and fight. Lucas's family leaves. Eric is gone. I know. You're welcome. Thank God. But Lucas finds a loophole and stays in Hawkins because Max is still in the hospital and he refuses to abandon her. Dustin lies to his mom. He says he's hitching a ride with Argyle as he heads back to California. He claims he's going to be staying with Susie. Dustin even sends his girlfriend a whole bunch of those Ferris Bueller-style pre-recorded messages to play over the phone whenever his mom calls. It's messy, sloppy, but he's committed to staying in town. The Byers are basically homeless now, so they shack up at Hopper's old cabin, while Hopper and Eleven build a makeshift bunker in the old Season 2 tunnels. The real wild card here are the Wheelers. Ted blindly trusts the government and refuses to leave his home, while Karen is ready to drag the kids out of town before they're forced to live under martial law. Nancy says she's staying no matter what, using journalism as her cover. Mike and Holly, however, don't have much choice but to leave if Karen decides she's going to flee, and the Wheeler house is basically a pressure cooker. Meanwhile, Steve and Robin stay under the guise of being humanitarian volunteers for displaced residents, but what they're really doing is taking over the abandoned radio station, the Squawk, just so they can coordinate the group through coded broadcasts. Dr. Owen's allies help make that a possibility. And at 11 and Hopper's request, Murray and Argyle leave town, but they're sent on a side mission. They have to go and find Callie. The group finally forms a plan, run repeated recon missions into the Upside Down, crawls, to try and hunt Vecna. The main gate at the library is wide open, but there are also smaller gates scattered around Hawkins. They obviously also can't go to the library gate because it's surrounded by military forces. They decide to rotate which sub-gate they're going to use per crawl because these smaller ones are very unstable and very unpredictable, and they could slam shut at any minute. Hopper obviously volunteers to do the recon. 11 insists on going with them, but Hopper shuts it down. She's far too important to risk, and more than that, she's his tracker. He needs her in the tank, following him in the void to make sure he doesn't get stranded in the Upside Down. This is obviously way better than a whole convoluted radar dish on vans and beamers running around Hawkins kind of thing. So 11 uses a Dr. Owen-supplied mobile sensory deprivation tank, and she goes void diving to track Hopper and search for Vecna. Both 11 and Hopper continually keep up coming empty. They can't find Vecna. But what she does discover is that she can use her remote viewing skills to spy on Sullivan and track his movements. It's clear that 11's powers are growing, but that drains her battery even faster. She's weak, she's getting tired. Everyone's worried, especially Hopper and Mike, but they're also completely reliant on her. Outside of Hawkins, the mainstream media starts sniffing around for the truth. Reporters capture footage of vines growing from cracks in the ground, and that's when Sullivan clamps down hard. He takes reporters prisoner, he seals down the town, and tries to stop the story from leaking, but rumors still escape. Strange creatures, odd attacks, disappearances, pressure builds behind the scenes. The Pentagon wants a solution, and fast, because someone is saying the thing no one wants to say out loud. The nuclear option is not off the table. Sullivan becomes paranoid and starts recognizing military personnel in town who he feels are off. Possible Dr. Owens moles. Dr. Owens himself isn't even in Hawkins. He's being held in an undisclosed facility, clearly having been brutalized, just tortured. But all of a sudden, a covert rescue team breaks him loose. But Owens is furious. He wants to be back at Hawkins, back at the lab. The team tells him it may be impossible to get him back there. But Owens wasn't the only one being held prisoner in this facility. A Russian KGB scientist from the Starcourt underground facility was also locked up in there with him too. Owens doesn't really like it, but he needs brains and he needs intel. So he forms an uneasy alliance with this Russian, and they break him loose as well. Robin and Steve use the Squawk broadcast to keep Hawkins holdouts calm. Friendly, familiar voices, but underneath it, they're coordinating crawls and tracking Hopper's routes on a growing map. Night after night, Hopper comes back with nothing. Vecna isn't showing his face. Eventually, 11 makes contact with Kali in the void. Kali has been hiding out in the middle of the desert, and her crew is gone. 11 sends word out to Murray and Argyle. They have to go get her, and they have to get to her now. Lucas spends every day, every waking moment of his life at the hospital next to Max's bedside. He's exhausted, hollowed out, but he won't leave. As he's there, he starts talking with a blonde doctor, his calm voice, comforting presence. His name is Dr. Black. The voice feels familiar. We, as the audience, never really see his face. Crawl after crawl fails, but they always try again. Hopper goes in, 11 tracks him. Hopper finally reports something new. The military has built a sizable presence within the Upside Down itself, even constructing a makeshift military base. But the second Hopper spots it, the base gets hit. Demogorgons and Demodogs tear into it like the whole thing was made out of bait. Hopper runs for the gate to exfil. It's closed. He sprints for one of the emergency ancillary gates, but they're farther away, and they're weakening. Joyce and Will drive to one of the last remaining gates into the woods to meet with Hopper so they can extract him. Hopper is almost there when the gate starts to close. Will, in the car, he hears a voice in his head. Hopper runs and runs and runs, but he's too late. The gate seals. He turns around to see the Demogorgons as they're about to tear him apart. But suddenly, the gate reopens. Will opened it. He reaches in and drags Hopper through just in time. Will falls into a trance-like state, seeing through his own eyes the creatures on the other side. The Demogorgons try to reopen the gate to pursue, but Will holds it shut with his newly found powers. Joyce and Hopper are stunned. They head back to HQ and the conclusion hits hard. Vecna isn't in the Upside Down where they can find him. He's pushing his forces into the real world and stopping military incursions like it's nothing. They wonder if they even need to keep hunting him. Maybe he'll come to them. But if that's true, they may already be too late. And now they're forced to acknowledge the new variable. Will has powers, seemingly out of nowhere. Will doesn't understand it, but Mike is thrilled. Finally, more psychic firepower. Mike thinks this will take the load off of 11, but 11 stays quiet, uneasy. She senses something is very off. The next day, Mike has a heart-to-heart with 11. He tells her he's staying in town no matter what, even if his parents leave with Holly. He refuses to leave 11's side. Elle insists that he needs to go. Hawkins is way too dangerous, and there are too many people hunting for her, even beyond Vecna. Mike refuses. He says they're so close to their happy ending. He promised her that storybook future, the 3 waterfalls. He says, we're going to find it, and we're going to live there. 11 smiles, but she doesn't look convinced. Dustin throws himself into his research. He wants to understand Vecna, the Upside Down, and this Dimension X concept. Are they separate places, parallel? Is the Upside Down frozen in time because it's a copy, a prison, a bridge? He's spiraling. Eddie's death still sits on him like a ton of bricks, and he starts pulling away from the rest of the group. Steve tries to lift him up, but Dustin, he just grows more and more distant day by day. He realizes he needs help, real help. So he goes to the one person he trusts to help him make sense of it all. Of course, Mr. Clark. Both Jonathan and Nancy use their journalism cover to keep running topside recon, but the military keeps shutting them down. Dr. Owen's allies feed them intel carefully because they know Sullivan is hunting moles. Jonathan and Nancy talk. They talk like they always do when they're in disaster mode, and they realize something painful. They only work as a couple during these horrific events. Jonathan finally admits he never applied to Emerson. Nancy tells him, I know. They realize they were never really trying to save their relationship. They were just trying to save Hawkins. Nancy turns towards the car. Jonathan pulls a ring from his pocket, looks at it for a beat, and then throws it into one of the open rifts. Then he follows her to the car. Murray and Argyle eventually reach Collie's suspected hideout. It looks completely deserted. They take a look around. Eventually, Murray says something about 11, and suddenly they're ambushed. Troops force them to the ground at gunpoint. Argyle, he just panics, rambles on about helping a psychic girl make a bathtub in a pizza shop, and then all of a sudden the soldiers vanish. Collie appears, wiping blood from her nose, smiling, kind of like, yeah, I did that. Take the hint. But something real comes up over the horizon. It's a helicopter, and it's making its approach quick. This isn't an illusion caused by Collie. Collie tells them they have to move. They pile back into the van, and they take off back into the desert. Collie used what power she has left to make the pizza van invisible to the helicopter, and they make their escape. With Will's new abilities on the table, the party tries something risky. Can Will open a gate on purpose, at random? 11 is worried. She knows what happens when psychic power interacts with the gates. It's how Henry became Vecna. Mike tries to comfort her, but he can tell she's hiding something from him. Will goes outside, and he holds his hand up, and he tries to reopen the gate that saved Hopper. And nothing happens. Not even a flicker. Suddenly, emergency whistles scream through Hawkins. Attack helicopters roar overhead. Hopper and Steve jump in a car to go off to see what's happening. Robin gets a message from her military contact. Get on the air and get on there now. She has to broadcast a mandatory emergency lockdown warning for all the remaining civilians. Hawkins is under attack. 11 runs to the tank and dives into the void, looking for anything. Sullivan, Vecna, any intel at all. Dustin is at Mr. Clark's house. Clark is staying in Hawkins to volunteer to tutor kids who got stuck behind in the quarantine. Dustin, he just breaks down. He's earnest, he's raw. He tells Clark he needs to focus on his physics work just to keep his brain from collapsing under the grief of losing Eddie. He eventually lays out his conundrum. The upside-down Dimension X, time freezes, wormholes. Mr. Clark realizes Dustin knows more than he's admitting to. Dustin shows him some VHS footage that Nancy and Jonathan had captured from downtown, and finally he tells Clark the truth. Dustin expects Clark to shut him down, but Clark doesn't. Then the emergency whistles hit. Back downtown, Nancy and Jonathan hear gunfire and shouting. Something is ripping through the streets. On the other side of town, Hopper and Steve arrive. Hopper is keeping his head down low, trying not to get spotted. It's absolute chaos. Hawkins is falling apart. Back out in the desert, a frantic Murray stops at a phone booth and tries to call Joyce Collect. There's no answer. He leaves a perfectly coded, Murray-esque message on her answering machine and gets back into the van, and they fly off. Joyce and Will are at the squawk with Robin when Will's head starts pounding. He's seeing those first-person visions again, something sprinting through the upside down towards the main gate at the library downtown. Joyce tries to ground him, but Will stumbles into the bathroom. He wants to be left alone. He closes the door and immediately drops into a trance. He watches through the monster's eyes as demogorgons pour out from the rifts and attack the town. But it's selective. They kill soldiers and anyone resisting, but they're not just randomly slaughtering everyone. More disturbingly, they're taking people alive, dragging them kicking and screaming down into the rifts. The attack helicopters arrive and try to fight back until they're swarmed by the demobats, sending the helicopters crashing to the ground. Back in the tank, Eleven senses something huge in the void with her, but it's blurred and shielded. She can't really see what it is. It feels like Vecna, but it's wrong somehow. She tries to get closer and closer, and she reaches out to it, just like she did in Season 1 when she made contact with the first Demogorgon. But suddenly, a hand reaches out and grabs her shoulder from behind. Eleven screams, and she's completely yanked out of the void. At the same time, downtown, Hopper and Steve flee, but Demodogs give chase after their car. Nancy and Jonathan try to escape too, but a Demogorgon blocks their path, stops the car dead in its tracks. The monster rips the passenger door off and drags Nancy out of the car, kicking and screaming off into one of the rifts. Jonathan tries to follow, but he crashes the car into a military transport. He's helpless as he watches Nancy be taken. At the Wheeler house, Ted and Karen are fighting again while Holly listens from the stairs. Karen's had too much wine and she's done pretending this is fine. She insists she and the kids are leaving in the morning, with or without Ted. Holly goes upstairs to listen to music and cry. Karen drinks in the kitchen. Ted goes outside practicing his golf swing. Chaos is brewing in the distance, and Ted ignores it like he ignores everything else. Back at the hospital, Lucas sits by Max, rubbing her hand. But suddenly, Max grips back. Her eyes open, and she starts convulsing violently. Lucas screams for a doctor, but nobody comes. The wounded from the downtown attack are being flooded into the ER. The hospital is turning into a war zone. Back at the squawk, Joyce paces waiting for Will to come out of the bathroom. Robin tries to get updates from her contacts, but nada. Hopper hasn't radioed back. Nancy hasn't radioed back. Mike looks up at the clock, and suddenly, he finds himself in the void, alone. There's no 11. Suddenly he hears her scream, but he still can't see her. Get home now. Mike suddenly snaps awake and bolts for the door. Joyce and Robin, they try to stop him, but he's already on his bike racing back home. In her bedroom, Holly stares at the ceiling. A rift opens above her bed. A Demogorgon drops through and grabs at her. She screams. Karen's drawing a bath. Ted's outside. The house lights flicker, which finally makes Ted look up and take notice. Holly runs for Karen. Karen tries to protect her. Ted runs into the monster in his house and almost gets killed. Karen and Holly try to hide, almost escaping, but the Demogorgon finally attacks him in the kitchen. Karen swings a wine bottle and gets absolutely wrecked. And no, she does not say, "Stay away from my daughter," because we're not doing cringe today. Back downtown, Hopper and Steve are still fleeing when Steve gets a panic radio message from Eleven. She needs a pickup. She needs to get over to the Wheeler's house. and right now. Before Hopper can even reply, a military transport blocks her path. The soldiers on board hold off the incoming monsters, but one of the COs recognizes Hopper. They pull him out of Steve's beamer. They try to grab Steve too, but Steve floors it and blasts past them. They fire on Steve's car, and he takes a bullet in the shoulder as he drives away. He radios back to 11 that he's incoming, but he's hurt. The message also reaches Jonathan's car, and Jonathan guns it towards the Wheelers' house as well. Mike, exhausted and on the verge of collapse, finally gets home and bursts through the kitchen door. His mom is on the floor, bleeding profusely and barely alive. He watches as a Demogorgon is carrying Holly through a jagged gate ripped into their front door. Holly screams for Mike, reaches out for him. Mike freezes. 2 more Demogorgons step through the gate towards him. Then suddenly, each one of them slams into the wall, like they got hit by an invisible truck. Each one completely obliterated, crunchified. Mike looks behind him. 11 is standing in the doorway. The front gate that the Demogorgon took Holly through is closing. Mike screams at 11 for her to go. He turns his attention to his dying mother. 11 nods and sprints, not walks, sprints after the Demogorgon that took Holly. Jonathan arrives at the Wheelers' house and finds Steve slumped at the wheel of his car, bleeding. Jonathan loads Steve, Karen, and Ted into his own car and drives them all to the hospital. A hospital that's overwhelmed and on the brink of collapse. Jonathan then has to tell Mike the next nightmare. Nancy has also been taken. Mike is shattered. His parents are near death, both of his sisters are missing, and 11 is lost somewhere in the Upside Down. Back at the Squawk, Will finally snaps out of his trance, just as Joyce is about to break down the goddamn bathroom door. He can't remember anything but his hair standing on end. He knows Vecna and or the Mind Flayer is close by. Robin frantically hails the radio. Dustin and Mr. Clark arrive to share their findings, but most of the party is gone. Jonathan also finally arrives and breaks down, delivering the full collapse. The town has been attacked. Hopper is captured. 11 is in the Upside Down. Nancy and Holly have been taken. Soldiers and civilians dead, but mostly missing. Mike's parents dying. And Steve has been shot. Dustin hears this and he loses it. He bolts for his bike and thusly heads towards the hospital. At a quiet diner, Argyle, Murray, and Collie sit in awkward silence. Collie is emaciated, eyes constantly scanning her surroundings. She explains that she's been running from Brenner's remnants and Sullivan's forces for nearly 2 years. All of her friends are dead. She sensed something big was coming, but she never had 11's clairvoyance at her disposal. Then, suddenly, the sound of a helicopter is heard approaching. Collie panics. She's too weak. The other confused customers go outside to see what's going on. The trio runs to go hide in the back of the diner. The helicopter lands and soldiers enter the building. Collie musters enough strength to shield them. Soldiers walk right past them like they're invisible. Then, a familiar and friendly voice calls out, "Ollie Ollie Oxenfree." Dr. Owens enters the kitchen. Collie's powers fail, and her, Argyle, and Murray are revealed to the soldiers. Dr. Owens is calm, even warm. He shakes hands with Murray and tells him he needs to keep more change for phone calls, to stop calling collect, and he needs some better coded messages. How else was it so easy to find them? But then Owens gets serious. They need to leave, and now. If Collie doesn't come, Sullivan will be right behind. Begrudgingly, Collie goes with. Hopper is strapped to a chair and tortured. He's used to this sort of thing by now. Sullivan, he can't understand how a man who's been declared dead for over a year is suddenly back in Hawkins right when the world is ending. But Hopper, he doesn't break. He laughs at it, calls them amateurs, says they need interrogation lessons from the KGB. Sullivan storms out. The lieutenant reports to him that the attack on the town was organized. Creatures, they took those people alive on purpose. They only killed those who resisted. Alone in the Upside Down, 11 tracks the Demogorgons, but they're too fast. She sees them converging on the outskirts of the Upside Down Hawkins. It's a long, dangerous trek, and she knows she's isolated, exactly how Vecna likes it. As she runs, she can't stop thinking about one thing, though. The person who grabbed her in the void. Dustin reaches the hospital. It's total chaos. He ignores everyone and runs to find Steve. Steve's alive. He's fine. Wrecked, but alive. 2 bullet holes. Somehow, miraculously, not fatal. Dustin breaks down and hugs Steve, apologizing for shutting him down. I don't want to lose you like I lost Eddie. Steve, half drugged, tells him that he is doing better than most people at the hospital, and that he doesn't have to worry about losing his best friend. After reuniting with Steve, Dustin eventually goes off to find Mike. Mike's parents are in emergency surgery. The outlook is grim. Mike is borderline catatonic. It's like his entire life got erased in an hour. Lucas, per usual, is still in Max's room. She's still again. His calls went unanswered, at least until now. Dr. Black enters. He's his usual calm, smiling self. Lucas rambles on about how Max moved. She gripped his hand back. Dr. Black simply nods, kind of like it was all expected. He sits down and calmly tells Lucas, gently, that he needs to stay close to Max, that he's Max's anchor. If she comes back, it'll be because of him. Then the doctor says something that freezes the room. He tells Lucas that Max is still alive inside. Lucas asks him, how could he possibly know that? The doctor turns, and we finally see his face as the audience. It's Henry. It's Vecna. Mike and Dustin both head for Max's room. They stop outside. They hear Lucas talking. It's like he's in the middle of a conversation, but all they hear is him. Mike peeks in. Lucas isn't facing Max. He's talking to thin air. No one is in there with him besides Max, and she's in a coma. Mike has Dustin look in. Lucas is pleading with some invisible presence. Can you bring back Max from the hidden place? But it turns to panic. What do you mean they'll try to stop me? They're my friends. They're Max's friends. They don't want to kill Max. Mike and Dustin realize something is horribly, horribly wrong. The buyers are holed up at the Squawk, and Robin is driving them insane. Joyce tries to hold the group together, but Jonathan is done waiting. He wants to go after Nancy in the Upside Down. Will actually agrees, but of course, Joyce refuses. Nobody does anything without Hopper or 11 anchoring a rescue. Will and Jonathan finally push back. They tell Joyce she can't protect them forever, and sitting still is just choosing death with extra steps attached. With Will's new powers and Jonathan's determination, they at least have a chance to try and save someone. Back in the Upside Down, 11 finally reaches the area where the monsters were racing towards, and finds something that none of them have seen yet. There are more rifts, but they're different. The rifts back in town connect Hawkins with the Upside Down, but these new rifts on the outskirts of town, they look like they go somewhere else. She doesn't see any of the captured townsfolk hanging around, which means they were likely taken through these new rifts. She hangs back for a minute and sees that creatures begin to flood out of them again. They're sprinting back toward downtown Hawkins. There are so many of them, it looks like an army. 11 is horrified. She's alone. There's no way she can possibly fight all these creatures. She needs backup. Back at the main military encampment, over the radio, a general says the quiet part out loud. The nuclear option is still not off the table. Even Sullivan balks. Cracks him a little. He leaves that tent and goes back to where Hopper is being held. Hopper, brutalized but still silent, sits there defiantly. Sullivan, he calls off his goons, makes them leave. And he does something really strange. He sits down next to Hopper and has a heart-to-heart. He takes out his wallet and shows Hopper a photo of his son. Tells him how proud he is. He's the first member of his family to break the generational cycle of military service. He's off to go study computer science. The kid has a big future ahead of him. Then, Sullivan suddenly gets grim again. He tells Hopper that he knows he thinks of 11 as his daughter. He tells him, that girl of yours is going to die no matter what. But if you don't help me, an untold number of other people's children will die too. And then you and I will have to live with that forever. Nancy wakes up somewhere dark, wet, and foul. She can't move. Eventually, her vision clears enough and she sees that Holly is beside her, but they're both cocooned in these strange organic shells. Hundreds of others are trapped there with them too, if not in worse condition. Far off down the line, she sees that people are being pulled from these cocoons and stabbed by these horrible tendrils, which liquefies them and melts them into some congealed mass. Nancy realizes with dread, this is not the Upside Down. It's somewhere far worse. Somewhere completely alien. Back at the hospital, Mike and Dustin run to Steve and tell them about Lucas. Steve is on pain meds and struggling to follow, but he knows the basics. Lucas is compromised. Time is short. They decide that they have to confront Lucas. Will, Jonathan, and Joyce return to the tree gate that will miraculously open to save Hopper the other night. Will reaches his hand out. He groans. Nothing. He tries again, but still, nothing happens. Jonathan, he's done. He spirals. He says he's just going to drive right down to the library gate, military be damned. Joyce argues he's going to get shot on sight. The mother and son argue and bicker. They turn away from Will, at least until a red glow blooms behind them. They turn to see that the tree gate has reopened. Initially, there's some relief. At least until Will turns around to face them. His eyes are white. He stares at them, ominously. Out of the newly opened gate, a horde of demigorgons rush through. Joyce screams for Will to wake up, but he doesn't. Joyce and Jonathan have no other option but to climb into the car and flee. As they speed away, even more creatures begin to pour through. Will, still alone, still in his trance, walks over to another tree, and like it's nothing, opens a new gate. Except this one opens right outside of Hawkins Memorial Hospital. He steps through it. Back at the hospital, still battered and drugged out of his mind, Steve decides he's checking out a bit early. He follows Mike and Dustin up to Max's room. But then, the emergency whistles scream. It's happening already. Happening again. Creatures begin to raid the hospital, demos of all shapes and sizes. They're taking prisoners alive. Steve, Mike, Dustin, they fight through the corridors, race up to Max's room, but before they can get there, they see Lucas running out, cradling Max in his arms. He runs towards an elevator. They all sprint after him, shouting, begging him to hold the doors, but Lucas doesn't. He cries, cradling Max, and whispers that he's sorry as the doors close. Steve, Mike, and Dustin turn. They see the monsters approaching. They just wait to be torn apart. And then suddenly, the quickly encroaching monsters get tossed around like ragdolls, like little absolute bitches, because, of course, who shows up in the nick of time to save the day? It's 11. She tosses the monsters aside and she runs into Mike's arms. They embrace. Mike looks at her and asks about Holly, about Nancy. Elle shakes her head. She immediately regains her focus, and she says, "We have to get to Lucas." They turn and see Will coming down the hallway. The whole group smiles and starts running toward him, but they stop. Suddenly, Mike, Steve, and Dustin get slammed against the walls. They're pinned there by some psychic force. It's Will. 11 engages him. They fight. Violent, dizzying telekinesis until 11 is forced into a terrible dilemma. More monsters are arriving. The Demogorgons are heading straight for her trapped friends. She can't hold off the Demogorgons and Will at the same time. One of the monsters swats at 11, hard. She crashes through a desk, bleeding profusely. Will approaches the trapped boys. His eyes are white, but he's crying. The real Will is still inside, trying to apologize, moving against his own will and power. It's Vecna, or the Mind Flayer, driving his body. A trio of soldiers burst into the hospital, but not with guns. Instead, they have some kind of experimental psionic weapons. One of them is holding a speaker-like device, and another one fires a directed heat beam. It's almost like a microwave gun. They blast at Will. Will screams as the Mind Flayer retreats, and Will collapses to the ground in a heap. 11, hurt, but still able to fight, hurls the monsters through the walls and out of the hospital. Gunfire erupts outside. The soldiers keep their weapons trained on Will, still firing them at them as he convulses on the ground, because they know if they stop, he might just wake up possessed again. Mike runs over to 11. She's bleeding badly, fading. He lifts her up and sprints for a doctor, any doctor. At least, until Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan stops him in his tracks. Lucas frantically runs through the woods behind the hospital, struggling to carry Max. 2 Demogorgons charge at him, but they run right past him, almost as if they didn't see him or he didn't exist. Lucas doesn't stop to think about it, he just keeps going. He knows the tunnels under the town are his only hiding place. He gets to one of the tunnel doors and a voice stops him. He looks behind him and it's Dr. Black. Or Henry. Vecna. He reassures Lucas that they'll be safe in there. He knows that Hopper and 11 have been captured. Lucas sobs, horrified at what he's done. Henry tells him he made the right choice. His friends betrayed him, not the other way around. Joyce and Jonathan return to the squawk. Joyce is wrecked. Robin tries to raise anyone over the comms, but it's static. Suddenly, Murray's voice begins to crackle through. He's speaking in code again. Joyce shouts for his location, but a familiar voice, Dr. Owen's voice, replies. He says they're inbound. 1 hour ETA. Joyce tells Owens about Will. Dr. Owens is stunned and terrified. Mike, Steve, and Dustin sit outside a makeshift military medical tent while doctors fight to save 11. Sullivan also watches from outside, but you can tell he's conflicted. Nearby, in another tent, a team keeps Will in an induced coma. Sullivan confronts the boys. He tells them Mike's parents are still in critical condition. Sullivan doesn't know how this resistant group of sorts fits into anything, and he could have them imprisoned, if not outright shot. Then he drops the big knife. They don't tell him everything that they know. He will walk inside that tent and tell those surgeons to stop and let 11 die. Without even thinking about it, out of pure rage, Mike stands up and decks Sullivan. Soldiers run over to restrain Mike. Dustin and Steve scramble to salvage the situation, pleading that 11 is their best hope, if not their only hope. Sullivan wipes the blood from his mouth and asks him calmly, "And why is your friend Will suddenly playing for the other side, with matching abilities?" Before they can answer, a soldier calls out to Sullivan from outside. A helicopter has landed. A 4-star general steps out of it. He yells out, "I want to see the girl." Back inside, the general sets his orders. Prioritize every medical resource for 11's immediate recovery. Sullivan protests, but he gets shut down. The general threatens court-martial and removal if anything happens to her. Sullivan exits and sees Dr. Owens arriving. They exchange a quick look of mutual hatred, but quickly go about their own business. Back at the squawk, Yegor, the Russian KGB scientist that was rescued alongside Owens, briefs the rest of the group. Clark, Murray, Argyle, Joyce, Jonathan, Robin, Kali. He tells them all about the Russian research that was done at the Starcourt underground lab. He tells them that the Upside Down is the wormhole connecting 2 worlds. In theory, an Einstein-Rosen bridge can manifest as a parallel construct linking points in interdimensional space via a specific moment in time, in this case, November 6, 1983, hence why the Upside Down is stuck in that day. The Upside Down isn't just a place or another dimension, it's the wormhole itself. And the Upside Down is made of some kind of toxic exotic matter that's keeping it open. Mirror linking to another realm, the Abyss. It's obviously a much better explanation than the weird meat vagina tube. He goes on to further explain that people with psychic abilities, such as 11 and Callie, can influence these gates. Clark begins to struggle with this, even though he was kind of starting to believe Dustin initially. He looks over and suddenly sees Conan the Barbarian standing in the corner of the room and gasps. Suddenly disappears. He looks over at Callie. She wipes her nose. Clark is instantly back on board. But Joyce only cares about Will. Why is this happening now? Where is he? Is he even still alive? Then the Squawk phone rings, which is extra odd because usually at the Squawk, they're communicating via radio. Robin answers. She goes pale. She calls Joyce over. Joyce answers and gasps. We do a hard cut to Joyce and Jonathan standing outside of Will's medical tent. Armed guards have shoot-to-kill orders. If Will moves the wrong way, it's over. Joyce is trembling. Jonathan is barely holding it together. Dr. Owens tries to offer hope, but it's thin. They don't know if the coma will hold. Owens believes that Will was permanently changed by his trip to the Upside Down, which was further cemented by the Mind Flayer infection, even after purging the particles. Will still has a tether to the other side. The only option to them is keeping him off of the chessboard. That way, Vecna can't use him. Or at least, so they hope. You have to get to Lucas, screams 11 as she wakes up, weak and in pain. Hopper and Mike are at her bedside, both of them crying, smiling through the relief. 11 tries to sit up, but Hopper and Mike stop her. She needs to rest. Hopper's face is beaten and bruised, and 11 gets angry, but Hopper shrugs it off like he's had worse because, frankly, he has. Mike tells her, Lucas was talking to someone invisible, and he fled with Max. 11 nods. She knows. She reiterates, we need to find Lucas and Max. We need to find them now. She tells Hopper and Mike if they find them, then they find Vecna. Callie enters the tent. 11 gasps. Callie smiles back. In the abyss, little Holly awakes to a living nightmare. Nancy is beside her, cocooned. All they can do is stare at each other as they inch closer and closer to being harvested as biomass. They can see the thing that's being built. It's some giant, multi-legged creature. Something is controlling this sickening construction project. It's slow and deliberate. Nancy, of course, believes it's Vecna. It has to be, even though he still hasn't shown his face. Given how many people are left alongside them, she realizes they may only have a day or two left until they too are also doomed. Dr. Owens, Sullivan, various military CEOs, scientists, everyone is screaming at each other in front of the general. Owens calls Sullivan a murderer and a traitor. Sullivan fires back, stating that this whole mess is the fault of men like him and Brunner. Honestly, they're both kind of right in a way. The general slams his fist down on the desk. He has top clearance from the highest levels of government, including the president, to deploy the final nuclear option on domestic soil. But he doesn't want to. He'll do it if this group keeps fracturing. He tells them he knows everyone's secrets and the faction splits. Brenner and Owens versus Sullivan. And none of that matters if the world ends. If they don't cooperate and find a way to move forward, they'll fail and be forced to drop the bomb. Drop it, says a voice in broken English from outside. The Russian scientist and Mr. Clark are brought in. The scientist and Clark propose the best case scenario. Drop the bomb, but drop it in the Upside Down. If their theory is correct and the Upside Down is made of the unstable exotic matter and a chain reacts, the whole construct will collapse and seal itself off, severing the bridge to the abyss. The general asks, what about Vecna? Can't he just reopen a rift? Owens and Sullivan finally agree. Vecna must be found and killed. But Owens insists only 11 can draw him out, which is why she must stay alive. Sullivan argues that 11 is the reason this all started in the first place, and points to Will's newly found powers as proof that they're both dangerous. The general makes the decision. Use the girl to snuff out Vecna. Keep Will on ice. And he mentions that a parallel set of, quote, experts should be running operations alongside of the military outfit. Sullivan scoffs. He knows what that means. Owens, he smiles. 11 is still weak, even with top medics at her aid. But she's as ready as she's ever going to be. Mike and Hopper watch, worried. The party finally splits. 11, Hopper, Jonathan, and Steve go through the main library gate in town with a fully armed company of soldiers, as well as the nuke. Their first stop, upside-down version of Hawkins' lab. 11 will need to get to the original tank to reach full strength while she's injured, and she believes her reach will be stronger from inside the upside-down. Mike, Dustin, Murray, Argyle, and Colley will hunt Lucas in the real world once 11 locates him. Robin will stay at the Squawk and run comms. Joyce is going to stay back with Will. Mike hugs and kisses 11. The 3 waterfalls, he reminds her. She nods. 11 walks past Sullivan. He stops her. Threatens her. If she causes more harm, he will bring hell down on her. Colley, her friends, Owens, everyone will pay. 11 stares at him, but closes her eyes. She dives into his mind. Sullivan flinches. 11 quickly sees his plans. No matter what the general ordered, Sullivan intends to take her, to control her, possibly even kill her and her friends once she returns. She sees a memory. The general telling Sullivan that if 11 survives, she becomes a permanent military asset. No choice. Sullivan collapses. He looks up at her as she wipes blood from her nose. He knows that she knows, but still reinforces that he plans to keep that promise. 11 walks away, realizing she'll never be safe if Sullivan gets what he wants. 11's squad enters the main gate in town with a full military convoy. Tanks, heavy weapons, mobile artillery, missiles, and of course, a heavily armored truck carrying the nuke. Hopper and 11 peel off at the upside-down Hawkins lab and head inside. They make their way down to the tank room. 11 has a flashback to that part in Season 1, the first contact with the Demogorgon, the beginning of all of this. Hopper tells her she has to fight. Worry about Sullivan later. 11 nods. She sinks into the tank and goes on the hunt for Lucas. Lucas is still hidden in the tunnel bunker with Max. He hears footsteps approach and raises his slingshot. Quickly relaxes. It's Dr. Black. Henry. Henry reassures him. You made the right decision. Max will wake up soon. Then he pauses mid-sentence. He stands there listening. Something's off. Lucas panics and asks, "What is it? What's wrong?" Before Henry can even answer, he vanishes. Lucas runs, frantic, turning corner after corner, trying to find where the doctor went. And suddenly, he runs into a black void. Nothingness. Suddenly, he sees something off in the distance. Red double doors. He runs over to them, opens them, and steps into a movie theater. But on the screen, it's not a movie. It's happy memories. Familiar memories. It's Lucas's happy memories. Memories he spent with Max. He scans the rows of seats. The theater seems empty until he sees one single person sitting in a theater. He slowly approaches. His eyes widen. It's Max. She looks over at him and smiles. "It's about time you made it." Lucas sobs and runs over to her, hugs her, kisses her. He doesn't understand. How is she here? How wasn't she absorbed by Vecna? Max explains. She wasn't consumed. Lucas has saved her just in time. She wasn't missing. She's been hiding on purpose. 11 is even facilitating this interaction right now at that moment. And then we finally realize the hand that grabbed 11 out of the void earlier, that was Max's hand. Max and Lucas tell each other how much they love one another, but Max's smile fades. They don't have much time. Lucas asks the question, "How do I wake you up? How do I get you to wake up in the real world?" Back in the tank, Eleven speaks Lucas's physical location over the radio. It gets picked up at the squawk, and Robin relays that message to Mike and the others. The mood is grim in the van. Everyone's fighting back tears. Dustin asks quietly if they really have to do this. Mike just sighs. He doesn't verbally answer. Back in the void in the movie theater, Lucas demands answers. Why can't Max wake up? Why was she hiding? She explains. When Vecna killed Chrissy, Fred, and Patrick, he absorbed them. Their consciousness joined his, strengthening the rifts. But Max didn't fully die, so her consciousness escaped before it could be absorbed. While that final rift still opened, it's incomplete, it's weak. Kind of like the temporary gates all around Hawkins, and kind of like the ones that the demos can open at will. The good news, she's beyond Vecna's reach. He can't find her here, because she's built a fortress of good memories. Vecna only hunts on trauma. She says it plainly. Dr. Black is Vecna. Lucas denies it, but Max holds him down. Max delivers the even better news through tears. Vecna keeps her in limbo because if Max dies naturally and her consciousness escapes fully, her link with the rift will make it partially collapse, weakening the whole invasion. Lucas realizes what that means. He refuses. He'll find another way. Max is calm, devastated, but resolute. She doesn't want to wake up trapped in a destroyed body, broken limbs, mangled, blind, traumatized beyond repair. The only way to truly save Hawkins, their friends, the world even, is for Lucas to let her go. Back in Hawkins, alarms blare across the military camp. Sightings of creatures begin to pour in. They're crawling up from the rifts again. This time, they're not hunting for biomass. This time, they're here to destroy. Joyce sits beside Will. His body twitches. Dr. Owens watches the brain activity spike. The guards in the room raise their weapons at the ready. Back in the abyss, Nancy and Holly witness a horrifying sight. The giant creature being built awakens early. Unfinished, but still skyscraper-sized. It is soul-shatteringly terrifying. The only good part is it activates before it can finally melt her and Holly to join it. Meanwhile, in the Upside Down, Steve and Jonathan move with the company of soldiers towards the new rifts, the rifts that lead toward the abyss. That is, until waves of creatures charge at them. They open fire, but the monsters don't stop, they don't attack. If anything, they just run right past them. The commander tries to radio back to the real world, but it's too late. The true nightmare is already emerging from the rift from the abyss. The physical form of the Mind Flayer, kaiju scale, climbs out of the rifts, up into the Upside Down. They unload everything on it. Artillery, tank rounds, missiles. Small arms fire, it doesn't matter. It barely puts a dent in it. The monster obliterates the convoy with ease. Steve, Jonathan, and a handful of soldiers escape into the woods as the convoy is destroyed. The truck carrying the nuke is kicked like a tin can and it crashes nearby. Steve and Jonathan exchange a look. They're out of time. They sprint for the abyss gate. If Nancy and Holly are there, then they're going in too. Back in the movie theater in the void, Max tells Lucas that this is her choice. She isn't afraid anymore. She tells him that she will always be with him, even if he can't see her. One day they will reunite in that very theater, and until then, she's going to watch all of Lucas's happy memories from the long, well-lived life he has yet to live. Lucas still refuses. He tells her desperately, "I won't kill you, I won't kill you." Max replies simply with a smile. "You won't have to." In Hawkins, the invasion escalates. Demogorgons, demodogs, the bats, carnage everywhere. And then something far worse begins to emerge. A massive 100-foot spider leg raises forth from the rifts. The military pours everything into it. It does nothing. Back at Will's tent, with chaos erupting outside, Owens tries to keep the soldiers from firing the weapons. Joyce grips Will's hand and begs him to fight. Whoever is taking hold of him, whatever it is inside him, she tells him that he needs to fight. He needs to take control. He needs to make that power his own. The giant monster continues pulling itself up from the rift as it widens. Vecna is inside of it, controlling it. Will can feel him getting closer. Back in the theater, Lucas shakes his head no. Max hugs him, thanks him for loving her despite her flaws, and tells him that he was the best thing that ever happened to her. She smiles through her tears and tells him, "You have to be the Zoomer now." She kisses his cheek. Theater lights fade, and Max fades with them. Suddenly, Lucas is alone in the void again. Lucas drops to his knees, sobbing. Eleven appears. She kneels beside him, cries with him. She apologizes, begs Lucas to forgive her. And Lucas is hurled back into the tunnels. Mike, Dustin, Murray, and Argyle are all there. They're all sobbing themselves. Lucas explodes with rage. He rushes over to the others, pushes them, asks them, demands to know, who did it? Which one of you did it? A voice from behind Lucas says, "I did." Lucas turns and sees Collie sitting beside Max's now lifeless body. The needle is still in Max's arm. Lucas again collapses. Mike and Dustin run over, and they hug him as he breaks. As Max finally fades out, the fourth rift begins closing, severing three of the giant monster's legs. The giant creature howls and flails. The Mind Flayer kaiju falls back into the Upside Down. We zoom into its chest. We see Vecna connected to it. He screams in pain. But he quickly refocuses himself. The creature storms towards Hawkins' lab in the Upside Down at terrifying speed. Vecna goes into a trance and calls out psychically, "William, you are going to help me. One last time." Okay, and now we do a hard cut, cliffhanger ending into what probably would be the final episode. It might be a little controversial. You might not like it, but hear me out. Just roll with me and see what you think. At the opening of the final episode, we get a time jump back to 1943 at a Philadelphia shipyard. The USS Eldridge is about to be experimentally cloaked, the ultimate stealth tech. But just as the experiment unfolds, something goes very wrong. The ship disappears, but not due to invisibility. Teleportation. Somehow it teleports to Norfolk, Virginia. It's only there for a few minutes, then it snaps back to Philadelphia, but it's not whole. The aft portion of the ship is missing. Some of the sailors that were on board are disoriented, but seemingly unharmed. They were the lucky ones. Many more are insane, stark raving mad. Some are frozen like statues. Others are fused into the ship, still alive, conscious. The survivors are all debriefed, reassigned, and sworn to silence. They go on to live relatively normal lives. But their offspring show strange attributes, unique abilities. We do another time jump, this time to July 3rd, 1947, just outside of Roswell, New Mexico, on a dark and stormy night. Something massive falls from the air like it appeared from nowhere. It crashes into the ground. There's a giant debris field. But among the metal is organic matter, twisted in human bodies, tentacles and creatures without faces, but mandibles full of razor-sharp teeth. The next morning, the owner of the property, Mac Brazel, sees the debris field. He immediately calls the authorities. The military, of course, comes to clean it up. One of the investigators knows what he's going to find. He tells another of his colleagues that the newspaper is already spinning it as flying saucers. His friend replies, "Good. Let them think it's flying saucers. There are far more terrifying things trying to invade this world than aliens." That same year, 1947, around the same time and not far away from Roswell, in Rachel, Nevada, Virginia Creel gives birth to Henry. Victor Creel at the hospital holds his son up, and he has a disturbing flashback, not unlike a PTSD episode. He sees that burning baby in the crib. But then there's another memory that surfaces, something he has no recollection of whatsoever. It was his squad being assigned to a naval test in Philadelphia after returning home from Europe. Little does he know this was the moment that his life, and little Henry's, changed forever. Back at the Eldridge debris field in New Mexico, as soldiers clean the field up of every last scrap of metal, the shot slowly flips upside down, and we see some alternate version of that Roswell, New Mexico landscape as a giant spider-like shadow stares at a red crack in the earth where the ship landed. We do a hard cut back to 1986, and the shadow spider is now flesh and bone, tearing ass through the upside down and heading towards the Hawkins lab. Inside of its chest is Vecna, Henry, one, Dr. Black. He is calm, focused, and resolute, and he is still calling out for Will. Hopper paces outside of the ISO tank. He's growing impatient. 11 hasn't surfaced yet. He heard her call over the radio, relaying Lucas's position, but since then it's been silence. Silently, he's terrified. Back in Hawkins, Joyce continually tries to reach Will. She knows he's in there. But suddenly, Will's eyes open. They're white again. The soldiers take the safety off of their weapons. 11 grabs Will in the void, pulls him by the shoulder like yanking him out of deep water. Will sees that she's an absolute mess. She tells him there's no time. She's blocking Vecna's connection to him. Will doesn't remember what he did. 11 has no choice but to show him. Images of Will attacking the hospital, attacking her, slam into the forefront of his mind. Will breaks down. He can't believe it. 11 forces him upright. He has to fight. He can't be weak, not now. He has to fight Henry. He has to fight the Mind Flayer. She teaches him the focus trick, the same one Kali taught her, and the one that was reinforced through her time spent training with the Nina Project. Use trauma as fuel. Control it instead of being used by it. He still has a choice, and she's going to need him. Vecna knows he's being blocked. He's not getting what he wants from Will. So, he shifts his focus to a new target. One that's much closer. Back at the lab, Hopper hears a voice. It's his daughter, Sarah. He walks around the gantry and sees Agent Orange canisters. Sarah is in her hospital bed. He tells him that even though he knew he was harmed by the chemicals, he still made the choice to have her anyway. Hopper breaks down. Then Vecna speaks. He tells Hopper there was never any saving 11. She has no chance at having a normal life. She'll be hunted or used as a weapon until she's utterly disposable. Vecna tells him he's freeing humanity. Assimilation with a Mind Flayer ends suffering. It makes the world perfect. Hopper panics, screams at him to show himself. He shoots wildly, and he shoots at the tank. He opens the visor in front of the glass and sees that he shot 11. Hopper freaks. He smashes the glass in the tank and rips 11 out of it, and thusly out of the void. The illusion is broken. Hopper realizes 11 is unharmed. She looks at Hopper and asks, "What did you do?" Will is now left alone in the void. Vecna takes the time to appear as Henry. He tries to reason with Will. He asks him to join him and promises that if he does, no one suffers again, and that there will be unity, peace, and Will's family will be safe forever. Jonathan, Steve, and the remaining soldiers enter the abyss. It's a bleak landscape. They cough hard and grab for their supplemental oxygen. The soldiers halt them, though. They see movement ahead. They also realize that they're outmatched. Through binoculars, an organic assembly line is seen. It's some sepia-toned H.R. Geiger-esque hellscape. Faces sticking out of flesh walls. Captives. People who need saving. Time is running out. Hopper and 11 try to exfil the Hawkins lab to meet up with the others. Suddenly, the building shakes. Then, it quakes. 11 knows. It's coming. It's there. The structure around them fails as Henry, Vecna, in spider flare form, starts tearing the Hawkins lab apart. Hopper and 11 are trapped in a collapsing corridor. They have nowhere to go. Even while physically destroying the lab via the spider flare, Vecna multitasks. He's still trying to reclaim control of Will. He ultimately says that Will has no choice, but cooperating willingly strengthens the bond. He tells him he initially chose Will because he was weak, but saw potential for greatness. Jonathan, Steve, and the soldiers approach the wall of victims. They can't get any closer. There's no safe route forward, not without being spotted. Jonathan squints. He thinks he sees Nancy. Back in Hawkins, Owens begs the soldiers to stop and to not use lethal force. Joyce tries to keep Will from fully waking possessed. Sullivan is ready to order execution. That is, until Mike, Dustin, and Lucas rush into the room. The guards stop them initially. They plead and beg. Sullivan looks over at Joyce. She's sobbing. He looks back at Will's friends. He finally gives the order. Hold fire. Let the boys through. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas run to Will's bedside. The party gathers around Will. With Joyce in hand, they all tell him to fight. While still stuck in the void, Will hears the voices of his friends, and they're beginning to drown out Vecna. Will's rage builds as he relives everything he's gone through. His kidnapping into the Upside Down, the Mind Flayer infection, being used as a pawn. Vecna's form shifts from Henry into his true physical hideous self. He screams and reaches out for Will, but it's of no use. Back in the tent, Will's body shoots upright, but in the void, Will lifts Vecna into the air with an outstretched hand. And in the Upside Down, the spider flayer recoils. It has been stopped dead in its tracks from finishing destroying the Hawkins lab. The debris shifts. 11 clears a hole with her powers and sees the creature convulsing outside. She knows Will has Vecna hostage. Even if only momentarily, she can feel it. Hopper is trapped but nods to her. Go. 11 runs, leaps from the building, using her powers to fly through the air. She tears open the monster's chest and falls inside. Vecna's physical form is entwined in its guts. She rips him out of it. And in the void, Vecna disappears. Will awakes in the tent with his friends surrounding him. A now fully conscious Will demands to go into the Upside Down. He sees Collie standing outside. She nods at him. Sullivan scoffs, but he allows it. They all know 11 needs him. Back inside the literal belly of the beast, 11 fights Vecna. She starts strong, but then her injuries catch up to her. Vecna overpowers her. He gets in her head, tells her the invasion was inevitable. All civilizations become part of the Mind Flayer. It's been trapped in the abyss for eons, and now it's finally feeding again. Vecna has hold of 11. She is helpless. Vecna has a new use for her. He tells her that while he wished she'd come with him that day in the lab via her own volition, he still would not let her potential go to waste, even if used against her own free will. Vecna admits that Elle sending him into the abyss was always supposed to happen. He floats her up into the giant creature's control vines. The tentacles pierce her. Mind Flayer particles flood into her body. Vecna doesn't need to pilot the beast anymore. Instead, he forces 11 to, against her own will. She will be his new pawn, just like Will was. He commands her to finish destroying Hawkins' lab while Hopper tries to limp away from the rubble. As the particles infect Elle, she sees flashes of what this thing really is. The Mind Flayer devoured so many worlds across such a near infinite span of time that it ran out of worlds to conquer, eventually nearly devouring itself in the process. But deep in time, some semblance of it remained, trapped away in the abyss, waiting patiently for the day someone would make contact. We see a flashback to the Philadelphia experiment, to Roswell. This was the true first shadow. The moment across dimensions when the Mind Flayer was made aware of humanity. We see Eldridge wreckage and mangled Demogorgon bodies being held at what's presumably Area 51? We flash over to Victor Creel holding baby Henry, and eventually to Elle's own mother, pregnant. We see Brunner in the lab, and the day Elle banished Henry, and then the day she made contact with the first Demogorgon in the void. Elle screams as she feels this thing infect her, begin to control her. Her strength is fading fast. Vecna, now free of his Spider Flayer vessel, floats out of the chest of the beast and forces possessed Elle to kill Hopper. 11 screams, trying to resist. She's far too weak. The Spider Flayer rears up, about to strike, when Will appears, shouting at Vecna that he's not afraid anymore. Vecna grabs Will telekinetically, immobilizing him. He even mocks him as a frail disappointment. What Vecna doesn't know is it's a trick. Kali is projecting an image of Will. The real Will is hidden. While Vecna is distracted, the real Will reaches for 11 inside the monster. He helps her fight off the particles. 11 feels him. She pushes back. Vecna realizes the ruse far too late. Will's fake image drops. Will reaches out and locks Vecna into the air. And with a thundering scream, 11, through the Spider Flayer, slams its giant front legs down onto Vecna and annihilates his final physical form. In the void, 11 sees Henry as she remembers him, the kindly lab orderly. He's fading, though. He's powerless and strangely calm. He's well aware of what happened, but he's no sore loser. Henry tells Elle she still has a choice. She can take his place, continue what he started. He knows that no one knows humanity's evil better than she does. 11 also agrees that she has a choice, and she shows him the love her friends and Hopper gave her, the heroism, the light. Henry lets it wash over him, and closes his eyes and smiles. A tear falls as he fades away, and Vecna, Henry Creel, is finally gone. However, the remnants of the Mind Flayer is still alive and well, and now it's extra desperate. Sullivan and the others arrive at the ruined upside-down lab parking lot and recover Hopper. They rush past the Spider Flayer, though it's still being held at bay by Elle, seeing as she's still at the controls of its horrifying helm. Mike demands to know about Steve and Jonathan, about Nancy and Holly. Sullivan can't reach the company on the radio. He checks the map. He tries to locate where there might be survivors. Hopper yells up to 11, tells her she needs to stay in control. Mike shouts the same, tells her that he's here with her, and that she needs to fight. Sullivan finally barks. They have to find the nuke. Since she's still connected with the Mind Flayer, 11 gets hit with a horrifying vision. The rifts are beginning to close. Not just the ones from the upside down to Hawkins, the ones into the abyss too. Will sees it in his head as well and warns Sullivan. Time is quickly running out. In the abyss, Jonathan, Steve, and the last remaining soldiers see the rift back to the upside down slowly closing. Jonathan tells Steve He'd rather die trying to save his friends than die not trying. Steve nods in agreement. He nods over to one of the soldiers and tells him to find Dustin Henderson. Tell him Steve Harrington is sorry, and I'll do my best to haunt him and make sure he doesn't screw up in life. Jonathan tells the same soldier to find Joyce and Will Byers and tell them that he loves them. That one soldier leaves to go deliver the message. The others stay behind with them. But before the soldier carrying the messages can climb back into the rift, a giant leg emerges out of it. Then another, and another. The giant spider creature is returning home. It screams and charges toward the cocoon field. Jonathan freaks and runs towards it, if not to save Nancy, then to at least just see her one last time. Steve follows recklessly, until Will appears out of the rift and stops them. He has work to do. 11, still piloting the spider flayer, goes berserk. She crushes the field of monsters ahead of her like bugs, clearing a path. Will leads the charge, slicing a psychic line through the landscape so they can reach the captives. Jonathan runs over to Nancy and tears her free. Steve frees Holly. The soldiers try and get as many others as they can. But then, a new threat appears off in the distance. Small black streaks of what look like smoke begin to pour up from the ground. They float up into the sky and begin to form a cloud. Both Elle and Will know what this is, and before they have time to react, this new sentient mind flayer cloud rushes towards them. Will screams for everyone to run, but he turns back towards the spider flayer. He holds his hands out. He begins to bleed from his nose and his eyes as he tries to wrench 11 free from it. 11 fights back too. She fights the particles in her veins. She fights the cloud coming towards her. She even has to fight herself. But finally, she's ripped free and begins to fall. She falls out of the belly of the beast, but Will catches her telekinetically, slowly lowering her down to the ground. He picks her up and begins to run with her. They all sprint for the rift and dive back into the upside down. This new particle cloud surges towards the spider flayer's remains. It enters it and regains some weak control. It's going to go and chase the others down. Back in the upside down, a salvage military convoy truck waits for any survivors. Murray's at the helm. Sullivan is riding shotgun. They have a stop they need to make before they hit downtown Hawkins. The spider flayer forces its body through the closing rift, ripping off limbs. The truck hauls ass away. Hopper hugs 11 like he'll never even let her go. Sullivan tracks down the nuke and orders Murray to stop. He jumps out to manually detonate. Before he goes, he heads to the back of the truck. He tosses 11 a blindfold. He nods at her and runs. 11 puts on the blindfold and presumably goes into the void. Whatever she sees, we don't. Sullivan reaches the nuke. The spider flayer ignores him and chases the truck with psychic bait. Sullivan rigs the detonation. He's the only one who knows how to do it. The military truck races for the library gate downtown. It's still open, but barely. 11 removes her blindfold and shares a nod with Collie. The truck bursts through the closing gate just in time, but before the rear of it can get through, the spider flayer swats at it. The truck flips end over end and rolls, spilling everyone out. Everyone aboard looks back at the gate. They see the monster held at bay, its claws outstretched towards Hawkins. But something is holding it back. Hopper and Mike scramble up through the crumpled heap of bodies in the wreckage, searching for 11. She's not there with any of the survivors. Mike looks over at the gate and finally sees her. She's standing just beyond, still in the upside down. Hopper yells. Mike just stares. He almost looks betrayed. Suddenly, Mike drops into the void. 11 is there. She's crying. She tells him she can't go with them because of what Sullivan showed her. The general will never let her go. She'll be a permanent asset, no escape. Even if she did run, she'd be hunted forever. Henry was right. Mike refuses to let her go. But they have no choice but to finally say goodbye. Back in the Upside Down, Sullivan arms the bomb, pulls out his wallet and looks at the picture of his son, and finally detonates. The nuke amplifies the decaying exotic matter that makes up the Upside Down, completely collapsing it. Mike is thrown out of the void and watches 11 vanish into smoke as the final gate seals forever. And then we finally come to our epilogue, and it will be the same basic structure as Season 5 was, but with a couple of key changes. The first being that there will be a much longer time jump, this time a 3-year time jump. Everyone actually has time to process and heal and maybe head towards a normal life. The second being, Max is gone. Lucas, instead of meeting up with Max before graduation, heads to her home. We hear a skateboard, but it's not Max. Lucas has taken up the mantle of the Zoomer, and he's the one learning to skateboard now. He heads over to the cemetery and sits in front of Max's grave, which is next to Billy's. But other than that, the epilogue remains the same. Mike and Hopper still have the same talk in front of the earthquake memorial in town. Jonathan, Nancy, Robin, and Steve have the same meetup at the Squawk. Hopper and Joy still get engaged. Graduation goes the same. And finally, the last D&D game happens, but just without Max. Lucas's future includes a different girlfriend. 11's ending stays ambiguous. Only now it's a little cleaner and more doable. We know Callie survived, but she's immediately whisked away into military custody. But everybody else has the same future flash forward. Dustin is still at college, Steve visiting, keeping an eye on him. Will still is at the gay bar. No need for any pointless, unnecessary, protracted coming out scene. No lecture. He's moved on and is finding his people. Mike still becomes a writer. And finally, after that game, the original 4 party members shelve their D&D books. Mike passes the torch to Holly and her friends, and finally closes the basement door on this chapter of his life. Okay, so what do you think? So, closing out, no script here. I obviously struggle to get through voiceover narration. That shit took me forever. I am not good with that. I'm Lizdexic as fuck to follow suit. So, yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was fun. I think it's cool to take something that's kind of a bummer, a bad season of television, a bad closing season of television, and, you know what, make some headcanon, make some fanfic, and see that you can do better. And I'm not trying to claim that this is great, that this is some work of genius. It is not. I know it's not. But I know it's certainly a lot more satisfying and probably been a lot more fun to watch than the slop that we ended up getting. And you can still close it out the same. So I know there's going to be 1,000 other people out there that have way better ideas of how this season should have gone than what I had. But it just goes to show you that pretty much anybody in this day and age anymore can create a coherent line through story. More than the people who are paid millions of dollars and have almost unlimited filmmaking resources can. So if you're somebody that watched that season and you're pissed, you should be pissed. You probably can do better than the people in charge. And vote with your wallets, you know. Don't give Netflix your money. If they keep making garbage, don't keep paying them money. Don't forget about these subscriptions. Like, Netflix is fucking expensive anyway. So, anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm obviously an amateur writer. If you liked this at all, I have written a couple books, and one of them is currently available on Amazon right now. It's a Halloween book called The Halloween That Never Was. I'm very proud of it. I think it's very good. Of course, anybody that writes anything is going to be proud of it and think it's good. I'm clearly very biased, so who knows if it actually is. But if you want to support, it's out there. You can read it for free with Kindle Unlimited. It'd be much appreciated. But yeah, go out there and make your own stuff. We can obviously do a whole lot better than the people that have so many resources and so much money at their disposal and it's getting to be a bit of a parody of itself at this point. Everyone says Hollywood is basically nothing but a giant money laundering scheme at this point, and after that last season of Stranger Things, $400 million, it certainly didn't end up on the screen, so I'm starting to think that that theory is correct. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I'm interested to hear anybody else's takes on this writing exercise. Make your own end of season 5. There's a million different ways you can go and still end up with the same conclusion, and I think that's the fun part about doing something like this. So I don't know, I hope other people do this. I'm curious to hear other people's takes, and yeah, thank you so much for listening.